I am CA Priyambada, Secretary of the committee, welcomes you to an enriching webinar on boundaries without burnout, building resilience in high pressure jobs roles. So I am the Secretary of Committee on Promoting Work-Life Balance. Since you all must be aware that this is a new committee constituted in this council year, that is 2025 and 26, with a motive to encourage our chartered accountants, stakeholders of ICAI to balance themselves in the professional excellence along with personal well-being. Personal well-being covers physical, mental, emotional intelligence, as well as to look on to themselves, to devote time on themselves for their own life. We all are chartered accountants, very busy in our profession. We already do not have much time for our personal things, but yes, that is equally important. Professionally, we are already skilled, we are all leaders, but at the same time, devoting time with the family, friends, as well as giving yourself subsequent importance is very important at this stage. We The committee has been taking a lot of initiatives, like we are organizing daily virtual yoga session from 6 to 7 a.m. in the morning, plus alternate, that is Tuesday, Thursdays and Saturdays zumba session from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. So these are all virtual session. You can just click at the button at that time. Also, you can join even after, at any point of time you can join and focus on your health and well-being. Plus, we are organizing every weekly webinars to enhance you, to help you out, that how we can have a work-life balance during maintaining work-life balance during high pressures job, high roles job. The topic itself says that we have to build boundaries. We have to say no to overcommitments without burnout, without being panicking. So this committee is being led by my chairman, the chairman, that is CA Jayachera sir, as well as the vice chairman, CA Sridhar Mupala sir, and this committee is being formed by our president, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda sir, as well as our vice president, CA Prasanna Kumar D sir. So we have our very experienced moderator, CA Sharmi Shah. Thank you so much for coming up and giving us the time. And we have a very eminent speaker today, Miss Maitri. Thank you, ma'am, for coming out, devoting some time for us, and helping our chartered accountants with many initiatives, with many roles that they can have proper resilience during their high pressure job, during their profession. So rather not taking much time, over to you, ma'am. Charmi, ma'am, for over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the kind introduction and allowing me to moderate this session. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar by our key resource person, Maitri Swaminathan, ma'am. As we all know, that real silence in high pressure comes from focusing on what you are can control, maintaining health recovery habits, and reframing stress as a part of growth. Build it gradually by facing manageable challenges, using positive self talk, and taking regular breaks to reset. But more on this topic, we will have Maitri Swaminathan, ma'am, to give us more insights on this topic. To formally introduce her, she's a seasoned, result oriented finance professional, bringing over 2 decades of experience in diverse areas of finance, controllership, taxation, procurement, compliance, and administration. In 20 December 21 to November 23, she was a CFO and a board director of Guardian Life India. From November 2010 to December 2021, she was the APAC Regional Financial Controller for Fleur India. From November 7 to Jan 9, she was a director in strategic investment for JSG Cash Trolley Services, Gurgaon. For her academic excellence, she is a chartered accountant, company secretary, certificate on advanced oil and gas accounting, and a social auditor. With these brief introduction, I welcome you, ma'am, and now floor is all open for your deliberation. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Charmi, and thank you, Priyamvada ji, for the lovely introduction. It's always embarrassing to hear your background, being announced. But thank you for your kind words. And this committee of the institute, it's a newly constituted committee, but under the leadership of CA Jayachayra and CA Sridhar Mupalla, and under Priyamvada ji's leadership, I think coming out with fantastic topics. I could so relate to this topic that they asked me to speak about and address all of you participants today. The topic is boundaries without burnout and building resilience in high pressure jobs. And I think we've all been there. A lot of us have experienced this, how, high pressure jobs can start to take a toll on us in terms of where we start experiencing the impacts of stress. And, we are going to talk about how we can avoid burnout in such high pressure jobs and how we can set boundaries around ourselves. So I think it's such a relevant topic, and I'm glad that this committee has been formed first of all, and then think and the thought process that's going into coming out with these fantastic topics is really wonderful. I must appreciate it. With that, today's topic, and I know there is a chat box with which the audience can get in touch with us, and I would encourage you all to use the chat box and keep raising your questions over the duration of this session. Charmi is here with me today, and Charmi will be sharing the questions as you raise them so that we can address whatever questions you have on this topic as we are discussing, and during the course of the discussion, we should sort of raise all the questions. So my request to you all is to be participative. It should not be a one-way monologue from me. So we'll get started. I think for anyone who's attending this session, it's very, very obvious to me that either you're already, in a very high pressure job, which I'm sure is the case with many, many of you. If not, you're very sure that very soon you're going to be in a high pressure job, which is why you're attending the session and it is relevant to you. Since we are experiencing stress, we are expecting to experience stress. Uh, what does your typical day look like? And I'll begin sharing my presentation. And I want you all to spare a moment to think about what your typical day looks like. Um, okay, I'm sure my screen is visible. Charmi, I hope my screen is visible. So, thank so and just think about it, all of you. What does your typical day look like? Uh, you know, there would be a boss or there would be a client who's, constantly got newer and newer demands, right? And no matter how much we perform, no matter what we do, either the boss or the client, whoever it is in each of our cases, is always got that little bit more that they expect. So the expectations, I'm sure you can relate to this, the expectations are never ending, right? uh, Besides most of our tasks, since it involves preparation of financial statements, filing of tax returns, filing of statutory returns, many other things that involve statutory deadlines. So there is no optionality in doing the task that we have to do on the same day. It's not like we'll look at it the next day, because there are deadlines constantly that we are all fighting against. I think all of us would have experienced that. Apart from that, when we've got deadlines and we're working really hard to meet the deadlines, there are multiple inputs that are required from various people. The multiple inputs, seeking them, making sure we receive the input well in time from people, all of this coordination is happening. Suddenly what happens? The portal, the tax portal, or the MCA portal, or whichever portal that we are working on, suddenly has system issues. I'm sure you'll all relate to that. These are the challenges we all face: system issues. Last moment, we know the deadline is today. I have to file this return. I'm ready with everything. I filled the form. I've done everything. System nahi chal raha hai. How often we've experienced that, right? Then we wake up in the morning and we plan our day and we say, I'll get this done, I'll get that done, there's so much planning that goes in the morning into our day. And as soon as we get to work, what do we realize? A team member is on leave. Somebody on the team who was critical to whatever we had planned for the day says, I'm unwell. Or then We hired the team. We expected to perform a lot with the people that we hired, and eventually it turns out that their training requirements are much higher than we anticipated, and therefore the performance is not to the level that we expected, and things are going slower. All of these things give us stress, right? We immediately begin to get worried that where are we, what's happening, I'm not able to manage, I'm not in control. The feeling of not being in control suddenly kicks in. Our day looks like, I going back to my days when I was CFO and controller and things like that. Back to back meetings. My calendar used to be packed. If somebody wanted 5 minutes to discuss something, I would say find a spot in my calendar. So we are in back to back to back meetings all day. There is somebody waiting, and there is one discussion going on. There's someone who's sending papers for you to sign. Like, there's multitasking going on all the time. I think a lot of us will be able to relate to these situations. And when all this is happening, we are in back-to-back meetings, we are multitasking and all. There will be one more demand. Ye bhi ho jayega kya? Can you take care of this also? This is also urgent. Can this also be taken care of today, please? Please drop everything. Take care of this. This needs to be done. So there's one more item always waiting to be added to our lists, right? And then besides all this, there are the various public appearances. So if there is, if there's a senior partner from another firm who's coming to visit, then you have to take time out to meet them. If there is the banker and the bank team who's coming to meet, you have to take time out to meet them. If there's an important client who's coming, regardless, there is no issue to discuss, but the client is in town. The client says, I'm in the same city that you are. I'm visiting. I'm on a business trip, and I will have half an hour to meet you. You have to take time out. So all these public appearances where you're meeting people who who are not, like, these are not essential meetings for the work that you have to get accomplished in the day, but these meetings are absolutely critical for the relationships that you have with all these people. So there are all these public appearances, as I will call them, that are needing to be added to our already busy schedules. Then some of us also work on multiple time zones. We've got clients, we've got various things in various time zones across the world. The world has become very small, and therefore, you probably are waking up very early if your clients and teams are in, say, Philippines or China, and you're sleeping perhaps very late if your clients or teams, etc., are in the US. So it seems like the day is never ending, right? It begins, say, at 5:30 in the morning and goes on till 10, 11, 12 at night. And apart from that, the most important, we have family commitments. And we don't want to compromise on those because, whatever we are doing, all the efforts that we are making today are for our family. So we've got family commitments, we've got family, situations, we've got family celebrations, we've got family crisis, we've got family occasions that we all want to be a part of, right? And at the end of all this, we feel like jugglers. We feel like this bridge, and the waters are turbulent, the waters are swirling below us, and we've got this narrow bridge to walk on, and I can't miss anything. If I miss one step, I'm going to fall into the water. If something happens, I have to, if my boss is angry, I'm in the water. If my deadline is not met, I'm in the water, so on and so forth, right? So we feel very often, and I have felt this way, we feel very often that we are walking on this narrow path. We can't, one misstep left or right, if our attention slips, something will slip, and, and it'll be ending in a lot of disaster when we fall into the water. So I just wanted to relate this to say that, this probably is the situation a lot of us face, and we've seen others face as well. So, if this is how your typical day looks like, then over the course of the session today, what I intend to do is share some tips and tricks on how to manage these stresses. These stresses, you're not alone in facing them. A lot of people, I think, who are participating today, a lot of people who are in similar careers to ours, a lot of people are facing similar situations, similar stresses. You're not alone in this, and there are ways and means of coping with this stress. So, if this is how your typical day looks like, please stay tuned. We will be talking about practical tips on how to deal with these situations. Okay. So let us categorize. We've talked about our typical day. We've talked about all the things that, make us feel like, oh God, I can't let anything slip. Oh God, you're like constantly on the alert that I can't take one step to the side because something will go wrong. I need to stay on this long, narrow path. So, what are some of the things that give me stress? What are some of the things that cause the stress in my mind? And this is common to all of us. What are some of these things? So, I'm just going to share a list of some of the things that you may be experiencing which are causing this feeling of stress. And then once we see this, once we analyze this, then we will look at solutions so that you know which solution to apply in which situation. So, what are some of the things that give me stress as an individual? So, first off, we have excessive workload very often. Very often, what we have is constant deadlines. As soon as a tax filing is over, the next filing is due. The next, some other deadline is due. Financial statements are over, budget is due. Something or the other is always waiting to become urgent and to take our full attention, right? So there's constant deadlines, there are long hours. There are very few of us who have the luxury of working 5, 6, 7 hours a day. Most of us are working much more than that, right? And there are unrealistic expectations. So whether it's the boss, whether it's the client, whether it's our subordinates, even our family, there are unrealistic expectations from each of us that we are facing, right? And you could use the chat box to share some of your experiences on what you're facing and where you relate to these situations. So it will help me kind of propose solutions that are suitable to the solutions to the situations you're facing. So if you're participating in this session, please use the chat box to share wherever there are situations that you sort of associate with, or if there is anything different that you're facing, if you can use the chat box and share it. We will talk about solutions for each of these situations. The other thing is lack of control. We just spoke of it. We don't feel in control because there is so much happening. There is so much, and then sometimes the system will crash. Sometimes people will take leave. There are so many things that are totally outside of our control. We don't feel in control. Besides that, a lot of times we don't have autonomy on our work. So the way I want to do work is not the way I'm allowed to do work. There are organizational rules, procedures, policies. There's the way that we've been trained to do it by some, trainers. There's the way that is mandated by law. So there may be a simpler way of doing things, but we don't always have the autonomy of saying, okay, I want to do it this way. Nobody will ask me questions. We'll get to the same answer. No, there are procedures, there are policies, there are documentations that need to be created. So even though I know in the end, all I need to do is make a bank payment, right? But is it as simple as just going into my own bank account and paying? No. When it comes to an organization, it's not so simple that we log into the bank and we make a payment. There are lots of procedures around it. We have to take approval. The invoice has to be proper. We have to, go through the invoice payables processing for the invoice. The invoice probably has to be uploaded on a ERP system or a accounting system or something. There is an aging of the invoice. If the invoice is, not yet due for payment, then probably organization has rules around when it should be paid. Once the invoice has to be paid, then it has to be part of a batch, and then you approach a signatory. There's a lot of procedure, right? Which underlies even as something as simple as a bank payment. So there is lack of control and there is limited autonomy over the way that you perform your task. And there is very little control over the decisions. A lot of the decision making is sort of very by default. The decision you have to make is already known, right? And so there is very little autonomy. You say that if I had my way, this is how I would take a decision, but you don't have your way, right? There is very poor work-life balance. So we don't the boundaries between personal and professional time has really blurred in the recent times. Back in the day when I began my career, bank approvals used to be manual and physical, and we would sign checks to everybody. So the checks would have to come on your desk before a certain time, and before the end of the day, you would sign the checks and be done with something as simple as a payment, right? Now what's happened? It's all online. It's available on your mobile phone to make the payment anytime. And therefore, the person who's processing the payment, behind them, the people who are approving the invoices, everyone doesn't feel the pressure of completing the task by, say, 3 o'clock. Everyone wants to postpone the task till, the end of your day. Say, let's take that as 5 o'clock. So if everyone is postponing their task till 5 o'clock as an approver, the task comes to you at, say, 7 o'clock. Now, since your mobile phone is where you have to approve, 7 o'clock is no longer family time. 7 o'clock is the time you're approving payments. So suddenly there's this creep of, tasks where there is no boundary between my personal life and this is my time, and, and this is professional time. So all of that boundary has really disappeared in the recent times because everything is online, whether it's GST payments, whether it's GST returns, income tax returns, and so on and so forth, right? Similarly, there are very often unclear job roles. So it is never clear that exactly this is what my job role is. So, for example, if I take the example of I'm a professional on tax. So my job role is tax advisory, my job role is tax litigation, tax procedural, tax planning, transfer pricing, say, and so on and so forth. But along with that, if my client says I'm restructuring my business, please be with me when I'm, discussing the restructuring, because I want to know I'm doing it right from a tax point of view. Similarly, another client will come and say, I'm planning to incorporate a new, entity, but I want you to be there so that you can advise me what kind of entity I should incorporate, because I want you to advise me from a tax point of view. So the boundaries of exactly what is my job role is really blurring. And there are so many meetings that we are pulled into. Where is the time left for thought leadership? When do I think about how do I strategically grow my business? How do I strategically grow in my career? So there are very unclear job roles. There's job insecurity. So things are not as secure as they were, many years back. There is no certainty that a client will be a repeat client. There is no certainty if we are if we are in jobs. There is no certainty that the job will remain. There is a lot of economic instability. There is the fear of layoffs. Layoffs were a very rare thing back in the day. Today layoffs are common. We are hearing of so many companies reducing their workforce, right? Restructurings are happening, and so on and so forth. There's also lack of recognition. I expect that the way that I'm performing should bring some kind of recognition, but it doesn't often happen. Toxic work cultures have become very common, and it's very unfortunate that this is becoming the case. But toxic work cultures are something we've all experienced at some point in time, where there's unhealthy competition, there is micromanagement, there's very poor communication. So we are left wondering what is the expectation from me. There are also a lot of difficult relationships, and I think a lot of us will understand what we mean by difficult relationships. There's so much conflict with colleagues, there's conflict with clients, there's conflict with leadership. The client doesn't want to say no, and we have to learn to say no to the client sometimes. So the client doesn't want to say here no, and therefore it is like, can you do this also for me? And we get sucked into that vortex of not being able to say no, so that relationship becomes so difficult for us. And all of this adds up and becomes emotional labor for us. There's so much emotional labor in managing the client relationship, managing the boss relationship, managing family relationships, managing subordinates. And managing subordinates was something, I like to share that at one point, everyone was calling me either ma'am, or then at home it was mom. And between ma'am and mom, you literally forget your name, right? There's no one who's calling you by name at some point. So there is so much, emotional labor that's going into your work, and there's digital overload. There's just so much that, you're in a 30-minute meeting, you come out of it and you got 100 mails on your phone. So there is so much there's so much email overload and message overload and all of that we can never keep up. So I'm sure you can relate to a lot of these. So we'll move on to what happens when we experience this. And a lot of us may actually be experiencing these. It begins with irritation. It's like a feeling of irritation with everything that's happening in my day that I forget to smile. So that very simple muscle over here that we can exercise and so easily smile. We forget to exercise that muscle. We forget to smile, and we're constantly frowning. In fact, it's these muscles on the forehead that get more active, and we're frowning constantly instead of smiling. We also have anxiety, and I'm sure a lot of us have experienced. I have experienced that in my sleep. I see Excel spreadsheets. There was a time in my career that when I would sleep, I would see Excel spreadsheets, and that is nothing but anxiety. When you close your eyes, you're seeing your colleagues, you're seeing your boss, you're seeing so many things. It's not fun, right? You want to close. Yeah, in your sleep, at least it's your family that should be a part of those dreams. But unfortunately, a lot of us experience otherwise, and that's a classic sign of anxiety. And as a result of all this, what happens? We start making mistakes. There is so much work, and I always say the person who's working is the one who will make mistakes. जो काम नहीं कर रहा है वो गलती भी नहीं करेगा ना. So as you're handling so much work, there will be errors and omissions, right? And this leads people to think your performance is dipping. So there's that perception management. There's burnout or the inability to concentrate. So when you're thinking about, like, what is someone thinking about me? मैंने वो गलती कर दिया. What are they thinking about me because I made that mistake? So then you experience burnout, and that leads to disease. There's so many lifestyle diseases we're battling, which is like whether it's blood pressure or diabetes or hypercholesterol or whatever it is. We're all dealing with so much disease and constant exhaustion because we don't get enough sleep, right? And this doesn't happen only to us. There are celebrities who have admitted to having the same issue. Like Deepika Padukone has been very vocal in admitting that she faced severe depression and emotional exhaustion during her peak career years. Shah Rukh Khan himself said, there's feeling of being emotionally overwhelmed and emotionally drained when there's intense filming. So there are celebrities that we look up to, but they themselves face pretty much all the anxiety situations that we all face. Virat Kohli, if you follow sports, Virat Kohli has admitted that he's struggled with poor run when he was in poor form. He struggled with a lot of issues in his mind, and he said, I felt alone. And I felt that even though there were people around me, I couldn't talk to them. And I'm sure a lot of us experience that. It's lonely at the top. We've heard that. It's lonely at the top. And so, it's something that happens once you allow that stress and anxiety to get to you. Let's move to the solutions now. Let's move to the solutions. And if you saw the first picture where there was a path and water and you can't take one misstep. Now, suppose we create these boundaries around ourselves, right? And we create these boundaries. It's a feeling of being much more safe, right? What are these boundaries that we should set around ourselves? So let's talk about what do we mean by these boundaries. So first of all, what are the boundaries that we can set? First is a boundary on your time. What time will I log out? And this I found very, very effective for myself. That I used to set a time, say my dinner time was 8 o'clock. I would say starting from 7:50, I will not be looking at mails. I said that to my team. I said that to my clients. I've said that to my superiors, my supervisors. Everyone very clearly communicated that after 7:50, 7:45, 7:50, I will not be available for mails for 2 hours. If there is something urgent, leave me a message around 9:30 or 10. I will look, I will respond, and then we can have a detailed discussion in the morning. So unless the sky is falling, unless it is such a crisis that it needs firefighting solution right away, please assume I'm unavailable from 7:45. So you have to set your boundaries in terms of time when you're going to log off, time when you're going to devote to your family or to your your own well-being, which is dinner and things like that. The second boundary, so that's the first boundary that you can set, which is a time boundary. What is the second boundary? The second boundary that you can set is an energy boundary. What do we mean by an energy boundary? If I have my plate full, there's a point when I'll say my plate is full, I cannot eat anymore, right? Similarly, when my plate is full of tasks, there's a point when beyond this, overeating is unhealthy for me. So beyond this, too many tasks will also be unhealthy for me, right? So there's a point when we have to recognize a plate of work is full and we have to either learn to say no or we have to learn to delegate, we have to learn to collaborate. But at one point, we have to realize my energy boundary has been reached. I'm not in a position to take any more work in the current circumstances. I have to change the circumstance either by hiring more people, doing more automation, sort of sub-delegating the tasks, or actually saying no to tasks to my clients. I have to do one of these. Otherwise, my plate will be overfull and then it will lead to a stomach ache, literally for me in terms of work. The third one that we need to set, so time boundary, energy boundary. Next, we're going to talk about role boundary. So I have to ring fence my role. What is my role? And this is the ring fence within which I will perform my role. What do we mean by that? So what you have to clarify, what is my role versus what is the role of others. So if I'm in a firm where I'm the tax partner and somebody else is a partner for other issues, where the work is something I cannot perform myself, I have to very clearly say, no, this is my role boundary. This has to be performed by somebody else. Similarly, if I'm in a corporate job, very often the boundaries, say between HR and finance in case of payroll, HR and finance in case of provident fund or other such social security payments, the boundary is blurred. Similarly, the boundary between finance and the secretarial department in case of finalizing the balance sheet for the organization along with the complete annual report, the director's report, etc., those boundaries get a little blurred. And so that clarity and taking out time to discuss, mutually agree on where are those boundaries is very, very important. That this is mine, this is not mine. And we clearly follow those boundaries. So very often for my team, what I used to say is when my team would take leave and they would say, ma'am, we are taking leave for 15 days. I would say I have absolutely no problem. I always approve leave. I never disapprove leave. But the only thing that is not permitted is upward delegation of tasks. You cannot expect in your absence, I will take care of your task. So who is your backup? Tell me. If you want 1 month's leave, 2 months leave, 6 months leave, I will ask no questions as long as you tell me who's going to perform your task in your absence. So that again is role boundary where I set the boundaries that I know my role. And if my team is going on leave, I'm not going to be performing their task. So I have, that was my way of setting a role boundary between me and the team that reported to me. So if you set these role boundaries, then it's very clear what is your task and you can focus your entire day on performing that task. Then come digital boundaries. What are digital boundaries? When do I turn off notifications on my phone and focus on my family? So, question for you all. How often do you check your phone? How often do you unmute and, do you open the screen lock on your phone? There has been research that says that we as adults have a tendency to unlock our phones at least 100 times every day. 100 times. Can you imagine? At least 100 times every day, we are unlocking and locking our phones. Just imagine how disturbing it is to the mind and how little focus is possible if I'm like constantly unlocking and looking at my phone. So there have to be digital boundaries when we turn off all notifications. So my own personal way of doing this, and you can each choose what works for you, but my personal way of doing it, 9 p.m. my phone goes on sleep mode. After that, if there is someone who's trying to ring me. There is an exception list in which, my very close family and certain people are there. Their calls will ring. Everybody else, the call will not ring on my phone. I will see who has called. If I feel it's necessary for me to call them back, I call them. Otherwise, my phone is on sleep mode. I don't get notifications after 9 p.m. So you will have to, think what works for you and set some kind of boundary. If we don't set boundaries, even in the middle of the night, notifications are hitting our phone and our sleep is disturbed. That's what causes stress. The other thing is an emotional boundary. So we spoke of time boundary, then energy boundary. Third was a role boundary. The fourth was a digital boundary. The fifth one, emotional boundary. Okay. What is an emotional boundary? So, very often when we have people reporting to us, when we have colleagues, others, everybody is looking at letting off steam. So, somebody had a bad meeting with their boss, somebody had a bad day during commuting to office, and they all want to talk about it to somebody, right? And when we are having these conversations, their emotions start impacting our own emotions. So in the morning, if we come totally charged up to work, saying today I'm going to really make a difference. I'm going to take care of this, and then the first thing, as soon as we enter office, somebody comes and says, "Oh, you know what happened to me? I met with an accident, and this person was so bad. My car had a puncture, and this and that." Somebody starts giving you this, and your energy levels, you would have noticed, start coming down. So energy levels respond to the energy of people in front of us. And we have this constant emotional input from others through our day, which saps our energy from us. When this starts happening, then we need to set a boundary. So while we have to be a good friend, while we have to be a good colleague, and so on, and be a sounding board for our friends and colleagues, but at the same time, we don't need to jump into solution mode. They're only looking at somebody to listen to them. So understand your role in this, set your emotional boundary, and don't allow other people's emotions to start impacting your emotions. Similarly, you can respond to people saying, listen, I can listen to you right now, but I don't have a solution for it, right away. Let me listen to this, let me think over it and come back to you on, some ways that you can deal with this problem. Right? That's a nice way of responding so that you're not going to allow their emotional state to be topmost on your mind. You're going to allow that to be at the back of your mind, come back to it, think about it, and discuss with them what you're thinking later on. So, an emotional boundary keeps your energy pepped up without allowing others to sap that energy. So, an emotional boundary, very, very essential. Last is a physical boundary. So, what are some things physically that are non negotiables? So, some of the absolute non negotiables are protecting your own sleep, protecting your own exercise, protecting your own nutrition. So, if I'm, very often we say, I don't have time for exercise, right? कितने लोग बोलते हैं? How many of us say that I don't have time for exercise? I'm sure a lot of us have said that at some point or the other. Now, this is an absolute non negotiable. The same 24 hours that we have are the same 24 hours the Prime Minister of the country has, the same 24 hours the biggest entrepreneurs have, the people who are running the largest companies have the same 24 hours, the sportsmen have the same 24 hours, etc., etc. So, regardless, whatever overachiever, high achiever, everyone has the same time. And if they're unable, and if we say that we don't have time to take out for ourselves, for our own exercise, for our own sleep, then what do we have time for? Right? That means we have no time for ourselves. Then how can we do justice to others that we serve? So if we want to do justice to others that we serve, we have to take this time out to ourselves. So sleep, and what do I mean by sleep? A minimum of 7 hours sleep, absolutely non negotiable. I know a lot of you say 7, we don't have time for 7 hours sleep, but 7 hours sleep is absolutely essential for our body to recover, for our body to be fighting fit for the next day. If we are unable to get 7 hours sleep, the sleep deficit builds up, and it builds up to a way where over the weekend you might notice you're completely sleeping in the weekend, right? Or when you're on a holiday, you're sleeping throughout the day. So that is accumulated, sleep deficit that your body is working off. And this is not healthy at all, because the body recovers. Whatever organs we have recover when we are resting. And the reason that we have disease, the reason that we have all these problems is because our body and our organs are unable to recover when we don't give them enough rest. So protecting sleep, protecting exercise, and protecting nutrition. How often do we protect nutrition? So how often do we find ourselves saying, I didn't have time to have lunch. I was in a meeting, I was taking care of this, I was at a hearing, and I didn't have time to have lunch. What are we doing to ourselves by depriving our body of lunch? Our body then is starved for energy, and then it begins to go into starvation mode when we regularly deprive our body of energy at the point in time that it requires energy. The body goes into starvation mode. What does it mean to go into starvation mode? The body says, I don't get food when I need it, therefore I should start storing the food. And when our body starts storing food, that's when we deal with obesity. That's when we deal with weight gain. That's when we deal with cholesterol, hypertension, and blood sugar, and so on and so forth. All the entire basket of diseases arises from the fact that our body is in starvation mode. It is not getting calories regularly at the point when it expects them, and therefore gets into the habit of storing these calories for use whenever we don't provide it energy at the right time. So it's important to, mindful eating. And at the time we are eating, very often I've seen people who are scrolling their phones, replying to messages, and all of that while eating. It doesn't make for mindful eating. We don't know how much we are eating. We tend to overeat. We tend to not enjoy the taste of the food we are eating. Therefore, we feel, or thoda kha lete hain. Let's eat one bite more. Because we don't taste the food in every bite. So we want that one little extra later. And that's where all our lifestyle problems begin. So mindful eating, where we completely tune off from devices, tune off from everything. Mindful eating, where we sit with positive people, we have positive conversations. So again, at lunch, many organizations, where we talked of toxic workplace, many organizations lunch table is a place for gossip, and it's very diminishing of the energy when we engage in gossip. So try and keep lunchtime for positive conversations, keep lunchtime for repair, rejuvenation, and for mindful eating, right? So these are some of the tactics. So once again, what are the boundaries? Time boundary, energy boundary, role boundary, digital boundary, emotional boundary, and physical boundary. By laying these boundaries, what are the benefits that we get? So, first of all, once we lay the boundary, our overload automatically reduces. So, boundary makes sure that your work and stress don't spill into every minute of your day. You contain the work and you contain the stress inside that boundary. You're able to protect your energy. We just talked of how things, reduce your energy and how you avoid those situations to conserve your energy. Then how do you create clarity, role clarity? And role clarity is so important for us to have a focused day and have a productive day. So it creates that role clarity. It enables recovery. It enables your body to recover, and your body and mind are fresh to take on new tasks, to be innovative, and to provide thought leadership. And it builds respect. I think the least appreciated thing of raising a boundary is you earn other people's respect. People know, and it's a message to others, how do I want to be treated? And once you give that clear message to others on how you want to be treated, there's a much healthy relationship between the two people, because they know that, says after 7:45, people know it's not the time I like to be disturbed. So if ever there is an emergency, people are very respectful in breaching that boundary and tell me, today I know you must be busy. I know it's probably dinner time, but I'm sorry, this was very urgent. So I have built that boundary, and I have got, in turn, I have allowed people to respect that boundary for me. So in that sense, boundaries actually make us very, very safe in walking this path, which is narrow, but at least we've got these boundaries which will help keep us on the path. Okay. Any questions so far? And Charmi, if there are any questions, happy to take them, over during the session itself.
Ma'am,
Charmi?
we have certain uh, questions. The
Mhm.
first question is: should the definition of professional success for CAs evolve to include well-being and balance? If yes, how can individuals start making that shift?
Okay. So, does professional success mean well-being? What is professional success? First of all, how do you define professional success? Is it a designation? Is it income? Is it recognition? Well, how do you define professional success? So if I say it's designation, let's assume the definition of professional success is designation. That until I get the designation of, say, whatever designation that I aspire to be, that is the definition of professional success. So what happens when the person retires? What happens when the person is laid off? We just talked of job security and insecurity. The designation automatically falls off. So designations don't live beyond that particular job or that particular role, right? We've established that a designation is only for the role. Once that role is no longer there, designation is also no longer applicable. Does it mean money? What is success? Does success mean money? We are all professionals, and I know as professionals we all earn enough and amply to support our families. And when we talk of money, there's the law of diminishing returns. So the happiness that the first 100 or 1000 or 10,000 rupees gave us, the next 100 or 1000 or 10,000 rupees don't give us that same happiness. That's the law of diminishing returns, right? So no matter how much I earn, it is going to be subject to the law of diminishing returns. I may make millions, the next million will not give me as much pleasure, and so on. So is professional success money? And can that money be defined as 100 or 1000 or 10,000 or 1 lakh, which will give me lasting permanent happiness? No, it cannot be defined by money. We've established that also. Is it recognition by others? If it is recognition by others, how long do I get that recognition? I get that recognition only as long as I am on this planet. And I can be on this planet only when I'm well, when I'm physically and mentally in the planet. The day I leave the planet, and all of us will leave it someday, all that recognition is also forgotten or somewhere parked in people's mind, right? The recognition matters to me only as long as I'm in this planet. So professional success, no matter how you define it, ultimately boils down to how am I keeping myself well? How am I keeping this body and mind well to remain on this planet long enough to enjoy the designation or the wealth or the recognition that I'm getting from others? All of these definitions of professional success don't matter if I don't have physical and mental wellness. Having said that, how do I move towards it? How do I move towards it? I have to make that subtle shift inside my mind. No one else is going to come and prioritize my health other than myself or my family. So I'll share, and it's a real incident that happened where I had this boss. I hugely respected him. He was my mentor and everything, and very, very hardworking. I used to manage, pretty much a very, very big role, and always had the right solutions for problems. So many problems would land on his desk, and he would be able to solve all of them. So he used to work very, very long hours. and he developed some physical, health problem, and had to take extended leave about a year and a half for attending to that problem. Guess what happened? The fact that he developed that problem was because he was working long hours, but as soon as he needed 1.5 years holiday, the company replaced him. So when we spoil our health for our job, we are replaceable for the company. We are dispensable for the organization. The organization will go on. That's the rule. Organizations will go on whether we are there or we are not there. Who are we not dispensable for? We are not dispensable for ourselves and for our family. And so, what is the point in spoiling our health, physical, mental, if professional success is coming at the cost of physical and mental health? It's not worth it. So we have to learn to make these boundaries. And when will we learn to make these boundaries? Is when that subtle shift happens inside our mind, that this is what I want to do. When we have that recognition that I need to do this because this is the thing that is ultimately the goal of what I'm doing. Ultimately, why am I earning if I can't even enjoy? I don't have time to enjoy. I'm postponing joy. So that's not the way we want to live. So I think that should answer the question. Let me know if there are further clarifications required on that.
Okay, ma'am. The second question is many professionals feel guilty while taking leave or switching off. How can CAs overcome this mindset and truly disconnect without anxiety?
Okay. Lovely question. Lovely question. So I'm going to first begin with a CA answer. We've all read about internal controls, and we will be able to test that control only when the individual goes on leave, right? So if there's a task I'm doing every day, then how do I know that the procedures for that tasks have been well documented? The documentation is tested only when I'm away, or controls are tested only when I'm away, right? So the for a CA, ensuring that people take leave is absolutely essential to test those controls and to make sure nothing is dependent on individuals where the person is doing things, outside of ethics, outside of policy, or whatever the circumstance may be. So that's the CA answer to why leave is absolutely essential. The second part is, why is leave essential to me as an individual? Why do we so the fear, so first of all, the fear and anxiety that is associated with taking leave, one is because of FOMO, the fear of missing out. There may be new work coming from the client, there may be some meetings that I don't want to miss out on, or so on and so forth. FOMO is the first thing which causes this anxiety. Second is the fear that something will slip up in my absence, performance dips. If that is the case, then we have not built systems that are robust, that will take care of the work in our absence. So, again, I will say, if the anxiety is caused by fear of slipping up, I would say it is time to introspect and put those policies, put those systems in place where it is not dependent on any individual, even if that individual is ourselves. That's the second. Third, the anxiety comes from insecurity. If the anxiety comes from insecurity, where we feel if the organization thinks that work will go on even whether I'm there or I'm not there, then I'm no longer indispensable to the organization. So we want to create that aura around ourselves that we are indispensable to the organization, right? Which is not healthy. I always say the way to ensure that you grow and you go to the next role in your career, whenever I have looked for, vertical growth, promotions, and so on, I make sure my successor is ready. And as soon as my successor is ready, that's when I begin pitching for my next role. That has been my mantra throughout my career, and it has worked very super successfully for me. When I make sure my successor is ready, that's the point when I've said that I'm dispensable. Now put me on to a bigger, better role. And every time, trust me, I have got bigger and better roles. So this anxiety and this fear of insecurity of somebody else taking our role in case we take leave is something you have to address within yourselves. It's holding back your own growth, right? So what I would say is the anxiety is something within our own mind, and the causes of the anxiety, if we drill into them, they're usually very unfounded. So remove the anxiety, take leave. The world is not going to come to an end. And what I also like to say is we are not in jobs as brain surgeons or something where we are going to have a dead body on the table. Our role is very simple. We provide financial oversight, we provide financial advice, and so on. And barring certain times where it is all time bound and high pressure, the rest of the year is not like this. I have to acknowledge there are dates when we have deadlines. There are dates, those deadlines are statutory. Or those deadlines are driven by some, activity, business activity, operating activity of the client, which which is cannot be put off. Other than that, I feel the anxiety is all within our own mind and we have to work on addressing that anxiety. Shall we?
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is: are the strategies for managing stress and building resilience different for CA in practice compared to those in employment, and how should each approach boundaries?
The strategies are no different, Charvi. If we talk of time boundaries, energy boundaries, role boundaries, digital boundaries, emotional boundaries, and physical boundaries, what is different for any of these for whatever you're doing, whether you're doing consulting or you're doing a practice or you're doing a job? There is absolutely no difference in these boundaries. And in fact, these boundaries are not restricted only to chartered accountants. These boundaries are common to anybody who has a busy, stressed out, high pressure job, right? And once we set these boundaries, whether we are in profession or we are in a job, I think the many of the causes of stress kind of move away. There are, of course, more techniques coming up. These boundaries address the fact that I will not fall off my path. We will talk of more things as we go forward, but I hope that's answered the question.
The next question is: with emails, messages, and client calls coming in round the clock, how can CA manage availability without compromising service quality?
Can you repeat that, Charvi? With emails?
With emails, messages, and client calls
Hmm.
coming in round the clock, how can CAs manage availability without compromising service quality?
Okay. So here's what I will share my own experience of how I have handled it. First of all, few things that I have always done is start with my task list in the morning. So organize your day, organize things that are planned and that you know about. So things that you're already aware, which are deliverables. New things keep adding to that list, of course. But what you're already aware, begin with a list, begin with priority, and begin with delegating. So manage your time, manage your team's time well. Because when you delegate to them first thing in the morning, then they have the whole day to take care of the task rather than morning you're busy in a call and then you get free only at lunchtime. Lunchtime, what you knew in the morning, at lunchtime you're telling them ye bhi kaam tha. So that kind of is not fair. So first thing, your task list, what needs to be delegated, and do the delegation first thing in the morning. Okay, that's the first. Second, on my calendar, I always had blocked times, 2 times in a day. And whether that's like for me, half an hour in the morning and 1 to 1.5 hours in the evening, I would block. So those were the times I would sit at my desk and think about things. So this was not the time that I would be signing papers or looking. This is the time that I will think. So there is some issue that somebody's had. How do I resolve it? What do I do? So this is the time for strategizing. That's time for putting into thoughts. The time for collaborating with others to come out with solutions. So I would set out half an hour that would be blocked on my calendar as a permanent meeting, and one to 1.5 hours in the evening again blocked as a permanent meeting. So even if the client was calling me, I would say I will return your call. Can't speak now. Can I call back later? That option is always there, right? The client doesn't know whether you're in a call or you're thinking. So you don't have to feel guilty about that at all. Block this time because it's what makes you very productive. It's what gives you time for creativity and innovation. If you don't take this time out, you're constantly in firefighting mode. You're doing everything in a reactive mode. So, a little time to be proactive about things, to think through solutions. What do I do? How do I grow my business? How do I deal with unique situations that, a certain client or, when I'm in a job, my role requires to find a unique solution? How do I deal with those things? All of this planning, all of this thinking, and then if I need to sit with four people and find a solution, that should happen in this half an hour morning, 1.5 hours evening time, or maybe more, depending on how each person wants to. And this should be blocked off the calendar so that no calls, no SMS, no email in this time. Once you do that, you will realize that after that 1.5 hours, you are fully charged up to take care of the emails. So if an email comes in, then you reply, then next email comes in and you reply, then third email comes in, constant, you're in email mode only. Whereas when you take that 1.5 hours out and you see the mail trail, few issues would have got resolved on their own. Few issues you will realize are not so urgent, I can take care of them later, and you will be super productive in dealing with all the rest. So that is my technique of coming off the constant barrage of emails and SMSs and so on. I hope that is useful. Over to you, Charvi.
The next question is for young CAs and article assistants, setting boundaries with seniors can feel risky. How can they protect their well being while remaining committed learners?
Yes, this is a very, very nice question. And all of us, regardless what we are doing, so I know that for an article clerk, the chartered accountant under whom they are working seems like they are dictating. But trust me, no matter what level you're at an organization, there is somebody higher than you, right? And even if you're running your own practice, uh, the even if you're running your own practice, the client is bigger than you, right? So setting boundaries always seems risky, no matter where you are. How do you do that? So this is where the principles of positive communication work. Um, the principle of positive communication is that you have to communicate it in a way that is non-threatening. And how would you communicate it? So I would say, if I'm an article clerk, the way I would approach this conversation with the partner is, uh, sir, would it be okay if between 8 and 10 I took time off to take care of my personal commitments and my family, and then if there are any urgent items, I will take care of them after 10 p.m. This is a way, or is there some other time that works better for you? Like if 8 to 10 is the time when the audit partner always has a standing meeting to wrap up the day, then you should say, sir, is there some other time of the day when I can shift this? Because I do need 2 hours for my family responsibilities and commitments. So I think if you approach the conversation and have a proactive communication, then that will surely help you resolve the problem. I'm sure the audit partner also needs time to recharge. So if you can, arrive at a mutually agreeable time for that.
True, ma'am. The next question is our professional demands constant judgment and concentration. How does mental fatigue affect professional decision and what can be done to manage it?
So I think whoever's asked the question, mental fatigue and professional judgment. So our role is very technical and involves a lot of numbers and involves a lot of thinking, a lot of thought leadership. What is the best way? Alternate A, alternate B, evaluating those alternatives, coming to a decision on what is best. That is our role. And if I'm tired, if I haven't slept properly, if I'm physically hurting and aching, my head is hurting, my eyes are watering, if my neck is paining, neck, shoulder, back pain is a very common feature of anxiety, right? Uh, how do I concentrate? My concentration goes down. So fatigue, whether it's physical fatigue or mental fatigue. When I say mental fatigue, I'm my mind is just not working today. Don't we feel that sometimes? I just can't think properly today because it's possible that something is, you're thinking about something else, or your mind is so full, it's been working. It's also it also needs rest, right? So if you're constantly thinking and you jump into bed after thinking the whole day at 11, you're not getting sleep. In the sleep also Excel sheets are coming. So you can't sleep. Then you've got up early in the morning, and then you say my legs are aching, my back is aching, so I can't go for a walk. And then you go off to office. You skip breakfast because you say I'm not feeling so good, I'm not going to eat. That mental and physical fatigue set in, and then you're in no position to think. So it impacts your direct deliverables and it results in poor performance. So, fatigue and performance are directly related. And we have to ensure we are the guardians of our mind, we are the guardians of our body. There's nobody else who's going to come to do this for us, right? And therefore, we have to make sure we protect our energy from food, our energy from exercise, our energy from sleep. These three absolutely non-negotiable. Charvi, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is, the concept of boundaries is very insightful. There is a subtle feeling of missing out if we strictly follow the set boundaries, and thus we allow the boundaries to be breached. How to know the weightage importance to be given to these set boundaries? How flexible can these boundaries be?
Okay. Very, very nicely put. So I'm glad the question began with an acknowledgement of the insights the boundaries brought. So at least, keep it in the back of your mind. It's very hard to draw that hard boundary as soon as you've come out of this session. But keep it in the back of your mind and start drawing those boundaries. Initially, the boundaries will be flexible, right? And people will flex this boundary, not you. People will flex this boundary to the extent you permit them to. People will respect the boundary to the extent you tell them to. So I think this is a boundary that you are the guardian of. If you begin suddenly this evening with a hard boundary, it is not going to land well. So you need to begin with a softer boundary saying, today I'm going to try and log off at 8 o'clock and let me see how that works. You need to also communicate to your colleagues that I'm not available after 8. See how that lands. And slowly make that boundary harder and harder. And I'm sure it'll work well for everybody to know what these boundaries are. And they will respect. You will realize as you start drawing these boundaries that they will respect it. Now, the feeling of FOMO that the question has also spoken of, the feeling of missing off, the fear of missing out that is there, where you allow the boundaries to go soft. Well, if again that is an issue within yourself that you'll have to manage. Is the fear of missing out greater than the fear of missing out on something on the work front greater than the fear of missing out on your own personal wellness? It's your priority. And if you don't have your priorities clearly set out in your mind, then somebody else is going to come and set those priorities. Now, question is, are you going to set your priorities? Or are you going to permit others to set the priorities? I think that's a question each of us needs to ask ourselves and find the answer to.
The next
Charlie.
question is, nowadays company culture is becoming worst. What used to be 9 to 5 job stretches to 7 to 8 in the evening, making long working hours feel normal rather than exceptional. How to handle this situation?
I agree. I agree. And ever since work from home began, the home has become the workplace. And so there is no tuning out. Your computer, and we never had laptops back in the day. Everybody has laptops now. We never had, mail on devices earlier. but even if I don't have my laptop, my mails are on my phone. So the world has changed, and there are positives and negatives of the change that is happening with the world. Now, the negative of this is that there is no boundary on time and work keeps stretching. How do you handle this? So, first of all, how you handle it is um, whatever your meetings are, what time do they end? And how much time beyond your meetings do you need to wrap up all your other deliverables? Think of this. So that defines the end of your day, right? And draw a line there. Don't allow it to creep beyond that first. So you've defined the end of your day. Where does your day begin? Again, your day begins when you actually log into your computer and you start your tasks. When does that day begin? That also you define. Now you know how many hours you have. Now I make a mental map of what are the lean periods in this and where are the heavy rush up periods in this. So if there is a lean period in this entire 9 to 12-hour period that you're working, but the lean period is say 1 to 3, take advantage of that. So maybe a small walk after lunch is something we can all do. Maybe after, if this time period is say between 3 and 4 in the evening, where people are not, there's not so much demand on your time, maybe schedule a cup of tea with a small walk between 3 and 4. So there are ways that you can do where you can use this 12-hour period, but the low productivity times of this 12-hour period to focus on some physical mental wellness, right? Also, when you're working and you're sitting at your desk, if you can stand up at your desk and take certain meetings, please do that. So when I was working, I would put my computer microphone on, on speaker mode, and I would be walking around and taking the call. And people would see me walking, which is fine. I don't care. But I'm thinking, and I think better while walking. And I would, walk around that little cabin I had, and I would take calls. So if you can do that, or if you can stand and work, do that for part of your day. It's better than sitting all day. Another technique that I have used personally is, I used to put weights on my ankles and do leg lifts while taking long calls. At least you're keeping yourself physically active, right? So if we can't walk, that we can do. If we are going to work, then, maybe take the stairs. If you're on the, fifth or the sixth floor, you can walk the 5 or 6 floors if you don't have any other health issues. If your office is on the 14th, 15th, 20th floor, maybe walk the first 3 or 4 and then take the lift. So you avoid that lift crowd on the ground floor also. So to do, there are many, many things like the small things that you can do, but all these small things add up and make your day so much less stressful. So back to you, Charvi.
The next question is, how important is delegation in preventing burnout, and how can CAs build team that respect boundaries while maintaining accountability?
Delegation is absolutely essential. Delegation is absolutely non-negotiable. You have to delegate. I multiply myself multiple times by delegating my tasks, right? There is only one person here, and then as soon as I delegate, there are 2 and 3 and 20 and 100. That's the power of delegation. So, delegation, there is absolutely no choice. How do you delegate? Create robust policies, create robust procedures, have systems, have points of check, and have a clear communication with your team on when they are expected to consult you, when they are expected to inform you, and when they are expected to come and get things reviewed. Have these rules very, very clear so that your team knows that if there is something that's happened that you need to be informed of, they know that they have to come and tell you. So that once you do that, you can really use the power of delegation. And how do you get your team to respect your boundaries? You get your team to respect your boundaries by letting them know what the boundaries are. Only when they know what the boundaries are, they're going to respect it. And as long as you tell them when these boundaries can be breached, those rules have to be very clear. Suppose there is some major problem, the boundary has to be breached. Then your team has to know कि ठीक है, I can call this person even though it is already 8 o'clock. But if the issue is not so super urgent, then they don't need to call. After 8 o'clock, if somebody is calling to say, I filed the return, not required. That could be just a message. Don't call. Just leave a message. They're done. Right? So you will have to draw those boundaries. Back to you, Charlie.
Thank you, ma'am. On days close to stat audits, boundaries often collapse. What micro practices can CAs adopt even during such peak pressure periods?
Okay. Very, 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 very nice question. So peak pressure, the boundaries often collapse. Micro practices that you can do, first of all, mindfulness. First thing is mindfulness. Be mindful. Live in the present. So if the boundaries have collapsed, but if our mind is only on the present, we can focus, we can concentrate, we can get the task done. Very often what happens, our mind is not on the present. Our mind is thinking of iske baad ye, next task. Our mind is thinking of something that we did, a few hours back, but there is some pendency in that. So our mind is not always in the present. So first thing, mindfulness. Whatever you're doing, give it your 100% mindfully. Once you do that, you will see your productivity has gone up if you're able to do that. How do you become mindful? I'll give you one technique. If you see your mind is disturbed, moving to the future, moving to the past, not staying on the task, as soon as you notice it, put your pen down, close your laptop lid, close your eyes for a minute, listen for 3 sounds. Any 3 sounds, listen for them. Wherever you are, there will be 3 sounds somewhere. Listen to that sound for 20 seconds. That's it. Just listen. It'll bring you back to the present. Then open your laptop, pick up your pen, start working, and you will see how productive you are. So multiply your productivity by using mindfulness. Second, look at windows during the day when you can take micro breaks. And during those breaks, do something physical and recharge. Okay. Third, if your sleep is getting compromised, fulfill that sleep deficit as soon as you can. So 1 day of sleep deficit, next day fulfill. But if you're carrying on sleep deficit for a week, 10 days, it surely impacts your health. So make sure your sleep deficit is not carrying on for too long. Last, and I have some of these coming up later. If you have trusted friends, colleagues, whoever, spend a little time with them. Even if you spend 2 minutes with a trusted colleague or friend, not talking about work, but just lightening up, it quickly gives you that micro break where you're ready to get back to work. So please do that. So I hope this is going to be helpful in the next peak period for you. Charlie,
Uh,
any questions?
the last question is, what are the some personal non-negotiables that professionals should define early in their careers to prevent long-term burnouts?
Personal non-negotiable for me is 3 things on a daily basis. And these are not long-term non-negotiables. These are negotiables every day. Sleep, food, exercise. If these 3 happen, the rest of the day will go well. So for me, 3 personal non-negotiables that is no compromise on that. Any other questions, Charvi?
No, ma'am, there are no questions now.
Thank you. Thank you for raising all these questions. I'm going to move on with just 2 or 3 slides. Wrap up with that, and then we can have more discussions if we need to. So
Yes.
if we feel safe with boundaries, what are some of the boundaries that we can use for these situations? So if there's excess workload, we start delegating. That's one boundary. I say, this is mine. This is something someone else needs to do. So delegation. Know my role. If the excess workload is because I'm doing other people's work, then lay that boundary and say, this is my role. I'm not doing this. So all this, or know when my plate is full and start saying no. Put in systems. All that. We've talked about various ways to deal with excess workload. Lack of control. How do we deal with lack of control? We feel lack of control when we postpone tasks to the last. If I draw a boundary that only 5% of my task, of my clients, or my returns will be done on the last day, 95% I want to get done before. So if we are proactive in managing our workload, the lack of control aspect slowly falls off, right? So I would say the way to deal with lack of control is proactive management and planning of our tasks. Poor work life balance. So how do we deal with poor work life balance? We draw boundaries, time boundary, digital boundary, etc., etc., and that will help address our work life balance. Unclear job roles, we seek job boundary, and that will make it clear. I'm going to skip over the red ones and go to emotional labor. How do we deal with it? We set an emotional boundary. Digital overload, digital boundary. We've discussed all this. What about the red ones? Job insecurity. What is the boundary I can set? There is no boundary. This is dependent on somebody else. Lack of recognition. Again, how do I set a boundary? This is dependent on someone else. Someone else has to give me that validation or recognition. How do I set a boundary? Toxic work culture. How do I set a boundary? Difficult relationships. How do I set a boundary? So there are some things that are totally out of our control. And I had a boss who used to say this beautifully. He used to say this line that what you can't cure, you must endure. So he used to say this: what you can't cure, you must endure. These four things: job insecurity, lack of recognition, toxic work culture, difficult relationships cannot be cured, must be endured. I like to put this in a slightly different way. I call it IIWII. What do we mean by IIWII? It is what it is. So it is what it is. Let's accept it. This is how it is. I need to take this and move forward. So, if somebody has given me unfair feedback, which I feel that they've been very harsh in telling me that my performance is not good. Itna to kharab nahi hai. I've not performed so badly. Why have they given me such harsh feedback? What is my response when I go for IIWII? I'll say it is what it is. Let me take what is useful to me from this feedback and I'll leave the rest. What the person gives as feedback is not in my control. How I take it is in my control. So it is what it is. I will accept jitna I can improve, I will do. I will leave the rest. If there's a missed deadline, I missed a deadline. What do I do? It's outside my control. Done. It's gone. It's in the past. I can't control it. Done. Whatever I did, I tried very hard, but the deadline got missed for whatever reason. What is my response? It is what it is. Let's learn. Let's learn and let's make sure this doesn't repeat again. So instead of focusing on the past, the focus shifts on the future. That how do I prevent this from recurring? Similarly, if there's a huge conflict in the team and people are fighting at loggerheads with each other, and you're like, everyone is saying something about the other person, lot of negative talk is happening. What do? You can't control it. It is what it is. Let me stay grounded. Let me focus on my role. Let me not participate in this. That's your EV response. EV. If the leadership is very unpredictable, one day the boss is happy, one day the boss is angry, very emotional leadership style, what do? You'll say it is what it is. I'm going to protect my energy. I'm going to do head down and do my job. That's your EV response. What if there is, a lot of chaos? There's pandemic, for instance, or there are elections, or there is flood, or something like that. You'll say it is what it is. Let me control what is my deliverables. Let me see how much I can control it, and we'll recover later. So that is your EV response to things that are totally out of your control. These are not in your control. What's the point in spending energy thinking about it? So what you can't cure, you must endure. And while you're enduring, your attitude should be EV. It is what it is, and let it glow over, right? It does not mean that you give up. It does not mean anything like, I'm giving up, I'm not taking action. It means that you acknowledge the reality that I have no control, and then you act wisely and you stop wasting energy on things that you can't change. So, for things that are uncontrollables, EV. And then the most important thing, self regulation. Practice mindfulness, we've discussed about it. Practice exercise, do reflection. Spend 5 minutes at the end of your day thinking, how did I manage my day? What did I do well? What did I not do well? Both. Think of what you did well. Please continue. What you didn't do well, what can you improve? Look for those areas. When you do this mindfully everyday reflection, it becomes a powerful tool. Have hobbies, painting, dancing, swimming, singing, whatever it is, stamp collection, etc., etc. Have hobbies. They are such a good release for all your stress. Keep your friends and family close. You don't get to choose your colleagues, right? You make do. You can't say boss ganda hai. You don't get to choose your colleagues. You just make do with what they are. What you get to choose is the people you spend your time with when the time matters, like family and friends. So choose your friends wisely. Keep your family close to you. Healthy eating, restful sleep, we've discussed. Spend time with nature. Uh, Creativity, do follow some hobby that enriches your creativity, like painting or drawing or singing or whatever it is. Two that are not on this, practice gratitude. Gratitude is very important. There is a lot that we have to be grateful for. We are the top professionals of the country. We are grateful for this education. We are grateful for this institute for instilling in us that education. Let us practice gratitude for everything that we have. It makes all our challenges feel smaller. As soon as we see how much we have, all what we don't have seems so much smaller. So I think practice gratitude, that's a huge help. And wherever we can, community service, because it helps us realize how blessed we are, and how many people are there that don't have so much. So excuses like I don't have time, no, they don't work. We all have time. The most busy people in the planet have time, and so we have to find time for ourselves. So deal with everything through self regulation, whether it's office politics. Be aware of what the politics is. Be a passive uh, defendant of that politics. Defend yourself, but don't actively engage in it. If there's gossip, block it. Don't allow it to sap your energy. How many of us take regular chai breaks or even cigarette breaks? And we say that we can't work till we get our tea or we get cigarette. The proven fact is that cigarettes increase our anxiety and tension. The proven fact is it only provides temporary relief because we are suffering from withdrawal symptoms of nicotine withdrawal, or caffeine withdrawal for in case of tea or coffee. And so, restrict your intake of tea, restrict your intake of nicotine and smoking. And that itself is one of the self regulations that we can practice. And improve your work life balance by setting all these boundaries for yourself, and practice mindfulness, right? With that, we will be able to move towards a stress free life, and understand who am I, what is the things that is important to me. We already spoke of, is it designation, is it money, is it recognition, and how does any of this matter if this me, which is this physical existence, if this body and mind is not healthy, what is the point of all that designation or money or recognition? So once we recognize that, we start paying attention to our physical and mental wellness, and that leads to a reduce stress, that leads to those boundaries, and that helps us cope with our high pressure jobs. So if we are looking for permanent happiness, we must know how to prioritize our own health. We must know what our priorities are, set the boundaries for them, and we must find time to spend with our family and to focus on happiness, that and these things which give us permanent happiness. So with that, I come to the end of my formal presentation. Charvi, over to you for any last moment questions there are.
Yes, ma'am. Uh, can we get some kind of guidance material explained from your side for recalling these steps in our daily busy life? Because it's human fact that we only remember 25% of what we listen at this time.
Sure, I can share the slide deck for sure. But I will say, even if we begin practicing 25% of it, the law of attraction is once you begin practicing and believing in something that is helping you, it will attract more and more such positive things automatically. And so, I would say if you have retained 25%, don't target 100%. Start with that 25, it will attract more and more, and you will reach, maybe far further ahead than many others on this path. So I will share the slide deck, but please start practicing the 25 that you retain.
And the last question is, many professionals hesitate to set boundaries due to fear of losing clients or opportunities. How can CA manage their fear realistically?
Like I said before, Charvi, the fear is in our minds. What is the fear? If we set our boundary, is the client going to take decisions only between 8 in the night and 9 in the morning? If that is the fear, then I think it's a very unrealistic fear. So our fears are all in our mind, and as long as we deal with these fears within our mind, I think we'll be in a better place. So if you think you will lose your client just by setting boundaries, then I would ask you also to question yourself whether such clients are worth keeping. Those who feel that you're available 24/7, those who are going to call you at 2 at night and 3 at night, it's a question you need to ask yourself. So I will leave that for self reflection.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. This comes to the end of our session.
Yes, thank you, Charvi. Unfortunately, I have a flight to go to, so I will have to take leave. I will log off now, and I will leave you to, wrap up for the session on how we can set boundaries without burnout. Thank you so much. Fantastic moderation from your side, and thanks for handling all those questions, Charvi. And once
Thank
again, I
you.
would like to express my thanks to the committee for work life balance under Priyamvada's leadership and under the leadership of CA Jay Chaira and CA Sridhar Mupalla. So, thank you so much, everyone. And thanks for having me here today. I'm going to hand over to Charvi and I'm going to have to drop off. So, with your permission, Charvi and Priyamvada, I will drop off.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Maitri, ma'am.
So, as we gradually
Thanks.
come,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Maitri, ma'am, for very kind and very thoughtful. Your words and your everything makes an impact. So, yes, over to you, Charmi, for the closing remarks.
Thank you, ma'am. So, as we gradually come to the close of today's enriching webinar on boundaries without burnout, building resilience in high pressure roles, I would like to invite everyone to pause for a moment and reflect on what we have heard, felt, and perhaps even recognized within ourselves during this session. So, for chartered accountants, pressure is not an occasional phase, it is often a constant companion. Tight deadlines, evolving regulations, client expectation, ethical responsibility, and the need for absolute accuracy place us in environments where the margin for error is minimal and the demand for performance is relentless. So, in such a scenario, conversations around boundaries and resilience are not just relevant, but they are critical to our professional sustainability. So, one of the key takeover from today's discussion is the understanding that boundaries are not barriers. They are not signs of disengaged engagement or reduced commitment. Instead, they are enablers allowing us to channel our energy more effectively, make better decisions, and remain mentally present in both our professional and personal roles. So, when boundaries are consciously defined, they help prevent exhaustion and preserve our capacity to perform with integrity and clarity. So, this session also highlighted that resilience is not about constantly pushing harder or simply enduring pressure. True resilience lies in knowing when to pause, when to reset, and when to seek balance. It's about developing the inner strength to adapt, reflect, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. So, first, us as chartered accountant, resilience directly influence the quality of our work, our ethical judgment, and our long-term career satisfaction. So, what makes today's conversation especially valuable is its practical relevance. The insights shared were not abstract theories but real, relatable strategies that we can apply immediately. Whether it is learning to say no without guilt or prioritizing tasks more mindfully, creating psychological space between work and personal life, or recognizing early signs of burnout before they escalate. So I'm confident that many of us have walked away from this webinar with a renewed awareness, not only for our professional responsibility, but also of our personal well being. These two are not
But
opposing forces.
yes, I would like to add one more point, Charmy. Totally agree with all your closing remarks that what we have to do all these things to avoid burnout. I would also like to suggest all my chartered accountants we can be organized also. An organization, work organization also plays not only the work organization, our personal organization also plays an important role in limiting our burnout. If I'm not wrong. So it is
True,
very important for us to be organized during our work, our personal relationship, as well as our personal thing. Work organization, managing things properly also plays a very important role in building resilience at this stage.
true, ma'am. So these two are not opposing forces. They are
Yeah.
deeply connected and equipped to serve clients, organization, and society at large. So, on behalf of the Committee on Promoting Work Life Balance I extend my heartfelt appreciation to our respected Chairman, Sir, Vice Chairman, Sir, Secretary, Ma'am, and our esteemed speaker for sharing such thoughtful, insightful, and practical perspective. Your guidance has added immense value to this session and has certainly resonated with all of us. So, I would also like to thank each and every one of our participants for investing your time today. Your presence, engagement, and thoughtful questions have made this webinar truly interactive and meaningful. So it is encouraging to see CA fraternity coming together to openly engage in discussion around well-being balance and sustainable professional practices. So before we conclude, kindly request all the participants to take a few moments to fill out our feedback form that will appear shortly on your screen. And your valuable feedback helps the committee understand what worked well and how we can further improve and design more impactful session that addresses your evolving professional needs. So, as we log off today, let us carry the spirit of this discussion and let us commit to building boundaries that protect our energy, cultivating realism, and that sustains our performance and embracing balance as professional strength rather than a compromise. With these thoughts, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you once again for joining us, and we look forward to your continued association with the initiatives of the Committee Promoting Work Life Balance ICAI. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmy. Thank you, Charmy, for very warm conclusion as well as for organizing and managing the session with my Maitri ma'am. Very truly said. Yes, we what all we needed to be resilient and to avoid burnouts. Very true. We all are under high pressures job, and we truly need that. Yes, all to all our chartered accountants friends, I would really request everyone to please fill the feedback form and come up with the topics and the initiatives which you all would require us to do. We would be happy to do that, and take your 2 minutes. Give us the feedback for the sessions also, and we would love to come up with the new things. We are already initiating things, so requesting you to reap the maximum advantage of all the initiatives. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.